My name is Tom Barnes. Environmental Science Associates is we're a consultant to the Santa Margarita Water District, and we are preparing environmental compliance documentation for the San Juan Watershed Project. So we very much appreciate you coming here tonight. We've got a nice turnout in the rain, and much appreciated. I've got about a 20-minute presentation that will describe the project, go over the purpose of why we're here, a little bit about the project and about the California Environmental Quality Act and how it works, and then a little bit about the environmental topics that we'll look at in our environmental impact report, and we'll go into schedule. But the real reason we're here is to get public input on our process. We're just initiating this CEQA process, and as part of this initiation, we're really looking for input. This is a scoping meeting. So as I go through my presentation, you'll probably get questions in your mind about certain things. And we have district staff here available after the meeting to talk to you about your questions and provide some answers. I'm not really here to provide answers so much today as to get your input. So we'll go through that process and through that CEQA process of really understanding what your concerns might be regarding this project. And then after that, we can really talk about some of the issues. District staff will be here available to chat next to these demonstrations that we've got out here. So with that, I also wanted to say, before we get started quite, that if you sign up on the mailing list, or if you sign in the sign-up sheet in the front door here, then you'll be sure to get all the notices for the rest of the project as it moves forward. So if you don't want the notices, you don't need to sign up. But if you would like to be notified of our next meetings, please do sign the sign-up sheet here and you'll get those. So a brief summary of the project itself. We're going to talk about the San Juan Watershed Project. It is an opportunity that is started by the Santa Margarita Water District and the South Coast Water District, both member agencies of the San Juan Basin Authority, which is a groundwater basin, a joint powers authority, to manage local groundwater supplies through capture and recharge of surface water within Trabuco, Arroyo Trabuco, and San Juan Creek. It's really a local water supply project, and its purpose is to develop a local water supply to reduce dependence on imported water. There is a website, and it's really easy, sanjuanwatershed.com. Any information you want on it, we'll be posting in the sanjuanwatershed.com. You can go there and find as we move forward with the project. As I said, today's purpose is to comply with the California Environmental Quality Act requirements for scoping and public outreach. So we're really initiating an impact report. CEQA requires that when a lead agency decides to do an environmental impact report, to prepare a report, that they start with a scoping meeting. That's what we're doing today. A little bit about CEQA then, just to give you a background on the California law. Started in 1970. Really provides for transparency in government decision making. It's really a disclosure act that provides for public agencies and decision makers with the opportunity to show the work, essentially, and identify, as a decision-making tool, it presents the evidence that supports conclusions that decision makers really need to support the projects. So every project requires this careful analysis and transparent view of how decisions are made. But it also identifies potential impacts, environmental impacts of projects, and in so doing, the opportunity to develop mitigation measures to minimize or to avoid those impacts. So this is sort of a color-coded schedule, flowchart of how the process works. And we're in the green portion of this. We're just starting. This is a notice of preparation, NOP, scoping meeting. And the NOP, notice of preparation, was published in December for a 30-day period. We've actually extended that longer than that required period. And we are here to get comments on what we should look at in the EIR. Solicit your input on what are your concerns, what should the EIR contain. When that period is done, we'll go into the blue section, the middle section, where we'll write the EIR itself. We'll do the analysis. We'll prepare an impact report that will have a 45-day minimum review period, public review period. If you've signed the sign-up sheet, you'll get a notice for when that EIR is published. And you'll get the opportunity then to look at the analysis and see for yourself how you feel about it and comment on it. We'll have another public meeting, likely in the same location, but not sure exactly, but it will be another public meeting, and you'll have the opportunity to comment then as well. And then we'll move to the orange. At the end of this process is an orange period where we prepare the final environmental impact report. And that responds to comments, makes changes based on the comments that we received in the project description or in the analysis or in the mitigation measures. And then that final EIR gets presented to the board of directors for the Santa Margarita Water District, and they have the opportunity to consider that the EIR was done sufficiently and then to approve the project. Again, just the NOP is required. It's a scoping process, and it really is to get your stakeholder concerns early. It's a process to get to understand early what's at stake here. Okay, so a little bit about the project that we're going to be talking about. Again, it'll be implemented, so it's a project that is going to be implemented by Santa Margarita Water District and the South Coast Water District, and it'll benefit all the member agencies of the San Juan Basin Authority. In 2014, the authority prepared a groundwater and facilities management plan, which was essentially a look forward on how to better manage the groundwater basin underneath this creek system in southern Orange County here. And one of the most achievable objective that came out of that report was to augment stormwater capture. Really to try to be within the creeks when available, just like this afternoon when I came down here, I stopped to look over at the creek over the bridge, and sure enough, it's pouring water, just going right to the ocean, lots and lots and lots of water. Well, that's an opportunity. It's a local facility, and it's an opportunity to capture water. This project recognizes that and has developed ways of trying to capture as much of that stormwater as possible. So the project would be constructed in multiple phases. And phase one is what we're really here to talk about. It'll include the installation of 3 rubber dams within San Juan Creek and or Arroyo Trabuco Canyon. So I'm not sure if I have the pointer effectively, but this graphic shows the project location in the lower left corner as just at the confluence of the Arroyo Trabuco Creek and San Juan Creek, way at the end of the watershed, close to the ocean with respect to the entire watershed. You can see the purple line shows where all the rainfall that falls in that whole area comes down the mountains and it comes into the confluence of the San Juan Creek right before it gets to Dana Point. Our project would be right at that confluence. And this is an outline of the creek right now. At the confluence. So the Arroyo Trabuco goes up straight up the graphic here, and San Juan heads off to the northeast. And this would be the area where we would place 3 rubber dams to capture as much stormwater as we could. I'll have another graphic about that and show you a little bit more about that. And there's a poster that gives you a little bit better idea of what that location really looks like right now. But these dams would be in the creek, and there would also be possible modifications to the groundwater treatment facilities as well. The existing treatment facilities that have been built in San Juan Capistrano might get some opportunities for improvements as well as part of phase one. So this is the graphic. As you can see in the creek, it's a concrete-lined flood control channel essentially right now. It does have some urban runoff in it. But it's pretty lacking vegetation or lacking habitat values right now. And you can sort of see that, but the EIR will certainly look at what's there now. This is an example of rubber dams. I don't know if any of you got the chance to look at our video of how the rubber dams automatically can rise and be lowered effectively. It's really actually an ingenious way of impounding water but letting large storm flows go by without affecting or without damaging its flood control capacities of the channels. These dams in the Trabuco and San Juan Creek would cause a bank-to-bank ponding and a series of 3 ponds that would be full, and the water would be captured and infiltrate through the soft bottom channel that exists now into the groundwater basin as a means of augmenting the water in the groundwater. They would also be designed with a concept of fish passage in these dams as well. So phase one will be the dams themselves. The future phases could be a broader application of this concept of catching stormwater and infiltrating it through the in-stream channels. So subsequent phases, and the EIR will look at this at a program level, meaning it'll look at it in a sort of a higher level of detail, but thinking that perhaps we could put more dams in the creek as well. And also not just stormwater or urban runoff, but also perhaps recycled water. So we could, in the future, look to put recycled water in the creek and create impoundments with local treated water that could augment groundwater as well. We've managed the groundwater volume through construction of additional facilities, which would be conveyance facilities, treatment facilities, and extraction facilities. We could to manage the groundwater levels. With more water going into the ground, the groundwater level would need to be managed so that it didn't get too high, and find an optimal way of managing it. So we'll look at this at the program level, and these next phases are still really conceptual. Our EIR will cover all the topics in the CEQA guidelines. We won't leave anything out. So A to Z here. And particularly, we'll look at the biological resources in the channel and the flood control aspects of the channel, as well as all the other topics. In-stream habitat values, fish passage values, riparian values will be looked at carefully. We know that that'll be an issue, a concern of certain stakeholders. Groundwater is also groundwater quality and aquifer volume and mounding effects. All of that will be looked at carefully. We'll also look at growth inducement, and we'll look at alternatives, water supply alternatives. So this then is the schedule of our process. Scoping period ends on February 2nd. If you could get your comments in and thoughts about what we should look at and what your concerns might be by February 2nd. And then we will come back with a draft EIR sometime late spring or early summer, thinking to publish or certify the EIR, the final EIR in the fall of 2017. So we're on an aggressive schedule, but we feel it's doable. And looking at the fall of 2017 for finishing our CEQA process. And that ends my very brief presentation. Again, more thoughts about the San Juan Watershed Project will be on this website. The period closes on the 2nd. And my name and address is on the Notice of Preparation, the NOP, for you to send your comments to. And I'll leave this up on the screen. And then what I'd like to do is just have a show of hands, or not a show of hands, but if you just raise your hand and have a question for me or a comment, I'll write it on the board here to make sure that we capture it. But you can also put your comment on a comment card that we have on the front table. So with that, I'll just open it up. Anybody have any comments for us for the NOP? Yeah.
How about safety for kids, young kids going down there? Is the depth going to be that they could drown, or kids wanting to fish, or have a raft down there or something?
Yeah, that's a good comment.
My question is there someone from the San Juan Capistrano Water Department representing? Is there someone from the San Juan Water Department here today? And are you in contact with them?
We are in contact with them for sure. I don't think that there's anybody here today from San Juan Water Department. but we can get you contacts, and there's certainly folks from South Coast and Santa Margarita here today, and they will be by the, Dawn and Catherine, you want to just be maybe by these boards over here at the end of the meeting, and we can get contact information over there. And there's Catherine right there holding her hand up, and you can talk to Catherine, any questions at all, and there's Dawn Bunce next to her. And please don't hesitate to get contact information from the city folks. Let me just write that down.
How often do they monitor for contamination, for mosquito larvae and all of this for non-running water and other contaminants?
Yeah, for vector control and mosquitoes and other contamination. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Hi, you mentioned growth inducement. What is it that you mean by growth inducement?
I'll go ahead and reply to that, and I'll write it on the board as well. And growth inducement is a concept really in the CEQA process that we are compelled to look at through the guidelines of the process, where we see if a project would induce growth, would cause growth, would be directly related to causing growth. And a project that comes to mind would be if you are building a sewer system out into an undeveloped area, or if you're building your water supply system into an undeveloped area. That's sort of a classic example. So it's just something that we'll hit. And with water supply, we always want to make sure that when we're augmenting water supply, we understand how that relates to the plans, the growth plans, and general plans of the region. So
Yeah, I'm a geologist, and I want to know a couple things. What's the area that's planned to be used for recharge? Anybody know offhand? In acres? No? The question I had was, is it known whether there's adequate soil underneath the percolation area? Perhaps there's 5 feet of clay, and if you try to perk anything in there, it's not going to work at all.
We have done extensive analysis about that. Certainly being in the stream corridor is why we're there, because that's where the best area to infiltrate is. But Mark Wildermuth is here as well, and you might want to talk to Mark, a hydrogeologist, about some of the studies that they're ongoing.
No, he's a geohydrologist.
Ah.
He'll never say he's a hydrogeologist.
Okay.
I realize that the sides are concreted and we have to not block the flood control aspect, but it sure would be nice to have some more natural vegetation in the channel so that we could have something approaching a natural riparian woodland. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Just a comment to follow up that comment on natural riparian habitat. It's my understanding that the existing flood control facility is deficient hydraulically to convey the 100-year storm. Enhancing or putting in more riparian habitat will increase the, I guess, deficiency of the channel. So right now it's a self-cleaning facility. In other words, there's very little habitat, and it's a movable bed facility, meaning that the sediment moves during the storms and it kind of self-cleans itself, and that way it maintains a fairly decent flood control capacity. But if we start putting habitat in there, trees and vegetation, that's going to diminish very rapidly. And I know that we just got out of the floodplain not too long ago. And could this put us right back into the floodplain where we would start paying $5,000 to $6,000 a year for flood insurance?
Yeah, good comment. That's part of the assessment.
Hi, I'm Rick Wilson with Surfrider Foundation, and of course, we're interested in how this might affect ocean water quality and also the sediment delivery that replenishes our beaches that comes down San Juan Creek. So, that may be positive or negative, but it needs to be evaluated in the EIR. And then I have a second comment. I'll wait for you to finish writing. Okay, the second one is, as I'm sure a lot of people here know, there's another nearby project plan, which is South Coast Water District's Ocean Water Desalination Project. So I wanted to make sure that when this project is analyzed, that they also consider sort of the synergistic or not effects of both projects together in terms of how they would affect groundwater quality and groundwater level.
I would, excuse me, I would be interested in the groundwater levels that are ultimately to be maintained with infiltration and pumping, and particularly the impacts that would have on upstream vegetation. The San Juan Basin watershed extends well into Casper's Park, and a lot of native vegetation is potentially affected by the infiltration, which is a good thing, and the pumping, which is the opposite of that. And would be interested in maintaining an adequate groundwater for the native vegetation further upstream.
Yep, got it.
It's my understanding the Orange County Flood Control District hired PACE consultants for around $700,000 to do a detailed study of the invert of the channel to come up with a invert stabilization study or invert stabilization plan and design of grade stabilizers for the channel. I notice you're putting in 3 rubber dams. Have these been coordinated with that study so that they'll coincide with the grade stabilizers that are being planned by the Orange County Flood Control District? One other comment also. The Orange County Flood Control District spent millions of dollars putting in steel sheet piles behind the concrete lining out here. And with the, I guess, proposal that in the future they're going to remove the concrete lining and allow the channel to widen to the steel sheet pile, widening the channel. Are the rubber dams, as they're proposed, going to be constructed to the existing concrete lining or to the proposed ultimate configuration of the steel sheet pile? And if the rubber dams are designed to the concrete lining, does that then make it difficult for the Orange County Flood Control District to then widen the flood control channel in the future to provide 100-year flood protection to the community, because the rubber dams will then be a throwaway cost?
Great coordination questions, yes, and there's coordination happening.
How much is this going to cost and who's going to pay for it?
Yeah. Yep, good question, and there's folks you can talk to after the meeting, as I said. Yes,
I have just a couple of comments,
okay.
and it kind of has to do with funding. Should we receive federal funding from this, will the EIR be able to accommodate the EIS that might be needed, and why not go down that path now with the EIR-EIS combo? Will the EIR-EIS address water rights? And you didn't have on your last list the tribes, and I know sometimes those are just included under cultural, but tribal interests, of course, a couple of years ago became more important. Thank you.
Yes, all good questions.
The watershed from the ocean up to the Cleveland Forest is about 18 miles. All of the improvements that are being proposed in the lower watershed, the lower 4 miles, collectively is about $300 million. Is there any consideration from a study and engineering standpoint being considered for managing the watershed above the 5 freeway up to the Cleveland Forest, which is about 15 miles, to more appropriately manage the effects of the flow that's coming down through the watershed that causes the problems when it hits the concrete channels?
Okay.
I'd like to propose an alternative to be considered for the EIR, which is to change the location for groundwater recharge or diversion of the Trabuco Creek to the O'Neill Regional Park in the 100-year floodplain. O'Neill Regional Park. It's a 200-acre area.
Yeah, you bet. No, keep coming. This is why we're here.
Several years ago, I recall that there was a lawsuit about contamination of the near-surface aquifer. I think it was one of the oil companies or the gas stations may have contaminated the groundwater. Do you know if this particular project is going to be affecting that plume, or if that plume's been taken care of?
Important considerations, yes. More comments? More comments? Yeah.
One other comment.
Yeah.
Arroyo means creek, so you're saying Arroyo
Yeah.
Trabuco Creek? So
Well-
you might as well say Arroyo Trabuco or Trabuco
Yeah.
Creek. Pick one or the other.
That may just be me, so I apologize for that, but you're absolutely right.
What will be the impacts to the potential steelhead migration? And will it enhance their potential, or will they be able to pass through the temporary dams?
Okay?
Roger Buto, Clean Water Now. To second what my colleague Rick Wilson at Surfrider was broaching, I think the general topic is sequential or piecemeal filing. So if the if somehow the ocean desalination project and this particular project can somehow rectify any disparities or any future challenges. For those that don't know it, under CEQA, you're not allowed to submit sequential or piecemeal filings. They have to be integrated in some kind of a regional plan. So at some point, if that could be addressed, believe me, we'll be submitting probably many, many pages of comments, but I wanted to just clarify that and thank Rick for bringing it up.
Look forward to the comment letter. I'm going to say that louder. We look forward to the comment letter. And that goes with it for everybody. So anyone who, your comments are captured here for sure, but we'll have them in the record. But written comments are welcome as well, even if you want to say the exact same things.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to really quickly introduce myself. I'm Megan U. Schneider. I'm the Division 7 Director for the Municipal Water District of Orange County. So I'm very happy to help represent all of you guys. So if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. And this is literally down the street from my house, so welcome home. Thank you.
Any more comments? Yeah.
This is a really detailed, esoteric question, but I just figured I'd ask it anyway. The sheet pile that the Orange County Flood Control District put out here was designed with a 75-year design life, and that was assuming that it didn't have ponded water up against it. Is there any plans to do any kind of a corrosion study to see how the effects of the ponded water may reduce the design life of the facility?
I'm going to stand here for a minute. Any other comments? Anybody else? No? One last time? Okay. Thanks for coming tonight. That wraps up my portion. I think I'll give it back to Chuck and we'll finish up the meeting. But thank you for coming, and folks will be around to talk about details and be able to maybe provide some more answers to some of the questions. But appreciate your participation. Okay.
Before I close the meeting, I just want to recognize another colleague, Justin McCusker, Director on the Santa Margarita Water District, is here. And of course, I neglected to mention President Wayne Rayfield of the South Coast Water District, and Andy Runhart, the General Manager of the South Coast Water District. And there he is.
Director and also Dr.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Wayne, introduce your directors, please.
Thank you, Chuck. I just wanted to point out that we have two of our directors here, Dennis Erdman and Doug Erdman. And so we're well represented.
Thank you very much. And if I've left anybody out, forgive me. Anybody else? And are there any further comments from the audience before we close this special meeting?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And this doesn't have to do with anything to put up on the board there, but I noticed the Santa Margarita Water District is here and the South Coast Water District is here, but this is directly right in the backyard of the city of San Juan Capistrano. And why aren't they here? And why aren't they major stakeholders of this project?
Well, they would have to speak to as to why they aren't here. I know the city is aware of the project, and this session was widely publicized, so thanks for the question. Any other questions or comments? Okay, with that being said, the meeting is now closed. Thank you.